Welcome to the October 22nd, 2015 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Housekeeping items. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number or of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. Cell phones and electronic devices. At this time, we'd like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silence. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting will not be disrupted. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Steve and seconded by Jan to approve the minutes of the October 8th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We will now commence with the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for October. Oh, adjournment to what?
Second. Zoning board was first at 7, then we go to planning.
Yeah, Steve made the motion to adjourn. Oh,
That was the
minutes.
minutes.
Okay. Okay, who made the motion? Galen? Steve, did you second?
Sure.
And Steve seconded the motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We'll now commence with the City of Rapid City Planning Commission meeting. Items 1 through 8 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by a planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of the Planning Commission are recommendations to City Council. The City Council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 215 UR 021. Item 415 PD 033. The Planning Commission's actions on these items are final unless any party appeals the decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Planning Commission and Development Services Office by the close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 8 that staff would like removed? Any items Planning Commissioners would like removed? Any items? I have no one from the audience asking to remove an item. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar at this time. John moved to approve, and Steve seconded the motion to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. Regular agenda items. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is 15 PD 029. The applicant has indicated that they're going to revise the site plan, and as such, has requested that the item be continued to the second meeting. I believe that's the November 25th meeting, and that's staff's recommendation, so that we can get the revised site plan, review it, and come forward with a new recommendation, or
John made a motion to approve.
to continue to November 25th.
Excuse me. That's continue to the next meeting. November. Yeah, November. And Karen seconded the motion. November 25th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
Item number 25.
All right, item number 10 is
10. I'm making this meeting crazy today.
Not a week.
15 PD 35 is a major amendment to a planned unit development for the to allow professional offices in the Cleary building up on Katrin and 16. Go over some, well, give you an idea of where it's located. So we have Wellington Drive, Katrin, and then US Highway 16 is a little bit to the south and west. Originally, this was approved as a planned unit development, which allowed for 20% to be commercial to serve the neighborhood. This is about 17% of the development or part of the planned unit development. It is zoned, though, low-density residential district, but because of the PUD, that's why it's commercial. What the Planning Commission previously reviewed for this property was a major amendment to allow a small animal hospital, and there was a good deal of discussion on that one and neighborhood input. That project never went through, and Cleary Building has continued to be using the building. However, after some complaints to code enforcement, has realized that they needed a major amendment to allow the Cleary Building and a use which never got a permit to go in there, which is called Black Hills Garage Door, to be on the property instead of that small animal hospital. So that's why this application has come forward. Future land use, low-density neighborhood. Catron Boulevard is identified as an arterial and an entrance corridor. Site plan. We have a couple of identified trees which are going to be added on this east property line. That's one of the stipulations of approval. But there's no physical changes to the property. The building's remaining the same. What the applicant's requesting is that the uses that are currently using the building remain. Elevation, floor plan. So there's sales offices, manager offices, cold storage. Staff has received many comments from the public and pictures showing numerous vehicles and trucks, semis, trailers. The original planned unit development said that no construction vehicles or construction materials be stored on the site. It appears that Black Hills Garage Door is storing those and taking garage doors from the site to work locations. Staff is not supporting the Black Hills Garage Doors use of this property. We are, however, supporting the use of the property by Cleary Building and other professional offices without, and if you take a look at the stipulations, we're recommending that the hours be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and that no construction vehicles or construction materials being parked on the property. On the dais before you is a revised letter of intent from the applicant stating that workers do show up at the site anywhere from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. I'll let the applicant make their case for that. However, staff is recommending the 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 to 12 on Saturdays for the hours of operation. This is the existing sign which was approved on the site. Black Hills Garage Doors has been putting up a sign on the property, as you can see in this photograph, which they have not obtained a sign permit for. So the use hasn't obtained a permit and the sign hasn't obtained a permit. It's looking to the west, to the north on Catron Boulevard, and to the south from Wellington Drive. Closer look at that sign, which is, last I saw, was still out there. Wellington Drive looking into the residential neighborhood, and directly across the street to the south. In this area, in the back, facing the residential neighborhood, we have the dumpster located, and you can see some gravel area. Two of the stipulations, one of them is that the gravel area be reclaimed by, or that revegetated, and that the dumpster location be screened somehow whether it's moved or the location it's in now is screened. Getting rid of the gravel. What it's being used for is truck turning movements to access these doors on this side of the building where the cold storage is. And I'll have some pictures pretty quick showing. These are photographs which were submitted by the public. Just wanted to give you a few. The applicant has indicated that semi-truck trailers do not and come to the site anymore, that they're being, excuse me, that they're being not coming to the site anymore. However, the applicant has indicated that in this photograph, the machine was actually removing items from the property, taking them somewhere else, and that this was a one-time thing. But these are, again, photos that were submitted to staff. Semi-truck trailers, again, trailer here. The applicant has indicated, though, that part of the business is having trailers on site, taking equipment and materials from the property, which most of the materials are delivered to site, but some materials that are for customers are delivered to the property or to this property and then taken to their sites. So I don't know that these smaller trailers are going to go away. So we have received quite a few photographs from the neighbors showing a lot of truck traffic and trailers and semi-trucks in the past. I'd like to say that we support the Cleary building using the site for professional offices only, no construction materials, no construction vehicles parked on site or stored on site. We don't recommend that Black Hills garage door remain on site. And it's been indicated that if the Planning Commission agrees and approves the major amendment with those stipulations, that it'll have about 30 days to evacuate or be removed from the property. With that, staff recommends approval with stipulations noted in the staff report. The applicant is here with any questions, but I believe we do have some speaker request forms.
Tim Christensen, would you like to speak?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Christensen. I live at 6657 Wellington, which is one of the properties directly bordering on the east end. And first off, I'd like to say, since Patrick has taken over as manager of Cleary, he's the manager, they've done a very nice job of keeping the property clean. Mowed, keeping the debris away. They've stopped the storage of the outside materials. Most of the trailers have gone away, and there's a rusty white barrel on the northeast corner of the building I wouldn't mind seeing going away, and the dumpster, of course, which has been addressed. But other than that, lately, like I said, they have been keeping the property very nice, very trim, and I think most of the residents in the development would agree with that, and most of the residents would agree that that's a good thing for the development, especially the people that have their homes for sale. My issue with Cleary is the constant off-hours activity there. They have pretty much started having their crews report to work at 5:30 in the morning. Sometimes they're quiet, sometimes they're not. They're occasionally out there hooking up trailers, hooking up some type of a lift. Just yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, we were woke at 5:30 with the sound of clanking hitches and doors closing and slamming. And unfortunately, in this situation, the west side of our house, which faces the property, that's where our bedrooms are and everything. And we like to sleep with our windows open because there's nice, clean air up there. And like I said, that's our major concern, is that activity has actually increased over the last X period of time. I can't give you an estimate. Certainly this summer and maybe going forward. And last night, a crew pulled in at 10 o'clock, backing in that same lift. You know, you hear the diesel, there's just noise. Let me put it that way. I can give you several examples of this type of activity. And unfortunately, as I referred to earlier, how everybody thinks this would be a good thing that they've cleaned up the property and stuff. Almost nobody knows about the situation we're in. There are 3 properties bordering directly on the east. Our neighbors to the north, our townhouses, or to the south, our townhouses to the north. And then as they showed in the pictures, there's about 3 or 4 properties directly across the street, which are buffered by Wellington Drive. So you're really talking about 6, 7, 8 properties. And I don't know how many houses are in a development. There's got to be 150, 160. And unfortunately, they're not aware of this situation, and I have to come and speak forward because it's not appropriate for that type of activity. I don't see any of my neighbors here. Maybe they had to work or something. I actually took time off work to come speak about this because I have a highly vested interest. When we bought the house 7 years ago, we loved the property, loved the neighborhood. But the first thing we asked our realtor is what's going on over there at Cleary. And he described it as, Cleary had their professional offices there. The property was nice and clean at the time. I think they were renting to some type of a locator service or something, they were just literally using as office space, maybe had a vehicle parked in front. But as time went on, the condition of the property gradually deteriorated, where we got into the stuff, like I said, the materials outside, infrequent mowing, just all kinds of stuff that doesn't really belong in that type of a neighborhood. So I'm here to ask them if they would cease this activity. I'm in favor totally of them using it as professional office space because really it's the only option. They've been trying to sell that property for 7 years since we've been there, and I don't know how long it was for sale before that time. And in retrospect, it makes me think that they should have dealt with this situation when the development was created. This is a big development. Like I said, you're talking about 160 homes maybe, and we're talking about a 2 or 3 acre piece of land here. It's really too bad that something wasn't done when that development was created, that they couldn't have worked out some type of an arrangement where they could have bought the property, bought them out, maybe. I don't know if a building like that can be deconstructed and moved, but that's all water under the bridge. It certainly seems like that would have been the appropriate action at the time, because now here we are still 12, 13 days later dealing with the situation. Personally, I wish the small vet clinic would have gone in there. I think it would have been perfect, and it matches the criteria that we're looking for here. It would have served the neighborhood, because obviously there are many pets in the neighborhood, and some of the residents would have used this property, or used the services of the vet, but it never came to fruition, and so here we are again. And we will have to address the issue probably coming down the road later, hopefully if they can sell the building to the appropriate parties. So I thank you for your time this morning. Like I said, I am here requesting that, I'm in favor of approving it for office use, but I am also requesting that the off-hour activity cease immediately, because it's disturbing the immediate residents. You've received letters and emails, et cetera, from the immediate neighbors I was speaking to, and I guess I would like to stick around to the end. Do you vote on this?
Not yet.
Right
We still
now,
have
or-
other speaker requests yet.
Okay, but it will be
Yes.
voted on this morning? Okay. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Karen?
Good morning. I'm on the other side of the dais today, and obviously I'm going to recuse myself from this item. First, I want to say thank you to Tim for coming. I know that the letters were sent out to everybody in that neighborhood, but when it says that the request is for professional offices, I think almost everybody in that neighborhood said, oh, good, we're going to have a professional office in there. We won't have to deal with trucks. We won't have to deal with semis. And so I think most of the people are in favor of that. The question is this a professional office or not? And I think that's where the heart of the situation is. When this was a Cleary building, when they were first in there, it was because they had this equestrian center. And when the equestrian center went away, then the offices were left there so they could have a sales office so people could come and it would be a professional office for the Cleary building. They have a huge warehouse back there, and I can assume that they were saying, well, we've got this warehouse, let's just start storing stuff in there. Let's hire people to come to the site and get their daily job that they're going to do. So they have a backhoe, they've got a forklift, they've got that equipment in there. They've got some equipment in there, Cleary does, but most of their stuff is sent to the job site. But they still have those workers come. They still have that forklift making beeping noises at 5 o'clock in the morning. They come late at night. They treat it as a commercial industrial site. Then when they invited the Black Hills Overhead Doors to come in, or garage doors, to come in and use the site and rented them space, then they had the semis coming through, which came through all of Wellington Drive, and to get a semi in there, they almost have to pull into Edinburgh Drive and back in because there's no way to turn around there and back in, and they do back in their semis. I've go out every day, and every day I see semis, I see the trucks, I see trailers out there, and this is supposed to be an office commercial site or something that is used for the neighborhood. That's the request, or that's the definition of a planned unit development, is to allow up to 20% of that property to be used for commercial uses for the neighborhood. This has nothing to do with the neighborhood. The Cleary or the Black Hills Garage Doors, they don't service us. They don't help us. And for someone who lives there and sees this daily, I feel really bad for Tim and his family. They're the ones that get the brunt of those headlights in their bedroom windows when the trucks come in and load, and the workers come to get their requests and go to the job site. So they're the ones that Tim and his family and those that are close by, they really get the brunt of it. But the rest of the neighbors also have complained, and a lot of them have complained to me or to Tim and his wife, because they feel that with a commercial use like that, an industrial type of use, that it devalues their property. And I can assume there's several people who have purchased recently that have told me that if they knew what was going on there, they probably wouldn't have bought their home. And they're concerned about resale for their value because they've got this commercial business that's going on. I have to apologize for some of the pictures. I'm the one that sent in some of those little pictures. Came from my cell phone, and they're a little hard to see. But I wanted to let the staff know what was happening before, and so I've sent those in throughout the summer. And I also sent a letter in, and I forgot to sign my name or say it was me. So the last letter that you got, there's one on the dais, that is actually from me, and it states some of the same things that I'm talking about. There's also one other thing I wanted to mention, and there are two school buses that come by every morning and every afternoon picking up kids and unloading kids, and they park right on the corner of Edinburgh and Wellington, which is right across the street from the Cleary building. So you have kids there waiting for the school bus. You have parents that drive up their kids and wait in the car when it's inclement weather, so there's cars there. And so it's a real congested area for that, and they come twice a day. So a lot of people are worried about the kids, especially when Black Hills Garage Doors drives through the whole neighborhood with their semis. So I think that's the main thing. I think that Tim mentioned that as long as Cleary have a professional office and don't have the equipment, don't have their storage, that they would be fine to have as a neighbor, because it would just be an office. And if they would sell it to some other office that could be there, when you think of a professional office, you kind of think of an auditor or an accountant or a lawyer, anybody that could use that space as an office, and that would be appropriate for that neighborhood. Or an office that would service us, that would be good too. So in conclusion, I would recommend that if you approve this, that you approve it with the stipulations that are stated in the staff report, and they just have their office hours from 8 to 5 and on Monday through Friday, and 8 to 12 on Saturday. And that would be an office setting, and we wouldn't mind that at all. But anything other than that is beyond the scope of what's allowed in a planned unit development. So if you have any questions, I'll stay in the audience, and you can ask me anything you'd like. So thank you.
Vicki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in summary of where we're at right now. So Karen's correct, we have received numerous phone calls and emails from property owners within this area over an extended period of time, putting us on notice that there was an additional use for the overhead door company, and then the construction material and equipment and hours of operation that were occurring. This originated from code enforcement. In fact, the attorney's office was involved, and we're in the process of taking legal action when the manager before Patrick showed up in our office to see about making this major amendment to change it from the small animal clinic that the Planning Commission had approved previously back to the professional office use. We met with Patrick and Keith Carlisle yesterday and identified that we had our stipulations of approval that did bring the use back to the professional office use that was negotiated with Tom Cleary years ago when the equestrian barn went away, and this building was the building they used to schedule the horse lessons and to take in monies for the stall fees, etc. And when that side of the business failed, Tom came in and met with staff and said, we need to establish a reasonable reuse of this building. And the concurrence was that this would be a professional office use. There would be sample boards. People would come in. They'd look at the different product that could be sold. But at no time would that product be on the site, or would there be construction equipment or construction material. So as Fletcher went through the stipulations of approval with you, and as has been provided to the applicants, we're going back to that. So there shouldn't be issues with whether it's inside the building or outside the building. What we shared with Patrick yesterday was to be as forthcoming as he could in how he needs it to operate, so that when he speaks to you folks today, he could propose what he needs for it to work for Cleary, and to see what Planning Commission would concur with. But as it stands, our recommendation is to take it back to the office use, and that the hours of operation be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then 8 a.m. to 12 noon on Saturdays. And that would eliminate workers getting there at 5 o'clock in the morning. And even if they were there to get a cup of coffee, that's one thing. But if they're assigning out work and pulling in with the trailer and getting materials, that's certainly another. So having said that, I assume that you'll want to hear from Patrick.
Galen has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess maybe I'll wait until I want to hear from the building owner, because that was the root of my question is it necessary that we mandate closing Black Hills garage doors, and if they would be willing to comply with the stipulations that we've set forth here. So I'll wait until we hear from, I assume somebody from the building is present.
I don't have any more speaker requests for him, but I assume someone else wants to speak. Patrick?
All right.
You want to say who you are?
My name is Patrick Anderson. I am the branch manager for Cleary Buildings in Rapid City. And first off, I want to say thank you to Karen and Tim for your input. I'm new to this whole process. I've recently stepped into this position. I've been aware throughout the years of sort of the process that's been going on. And I want to do my best to accommodate and make Cleary Buildings less of a burden on the neighborhood. I apologize for the late revision to our usage. As Vicki mentioned, we sat down and had a discussion about that, and this has been a growing or a learning process for me, so I'm kind of adapting as we go through it. That usage that you guys mentioned as disruptive in the early morning hours is something, and like I think, Tim, like you had mentioned, not very many people are aware of that. And that hasn't been directly brought up to me as well, and so that's something that I want to address and I want to change. Our crews do meet in the morning, and that transfer equipment and the equipment moving on site, that can be eliminated or at least substantially reduced to the point where it's not a burden. I kind of put something together here to keep my thoughts all in order, so I'm just going to go ahead and read that. Like I said, I want to be a good neighbor. I want to maintain our property to the standards that the other properties in the neighborhood are maintained. I realize that throughout the years there have been promises made to clean up certain things and that not all of them have been kept. I also realize that some of the changes that were made did not last long. I don't make any excuses for this, and I agree that our property should be kept in better condition, a condition that will not detract from the rest of the neighborhood. I'm going to do my part to bring our property up to par. I don't expect anyone to simply accept my word on this, as I realize that there's been lack of follow-through in the past. I would, however, like to point out the changes I've made since I've been the branch manager. And as Tim mentioned, there's been some changes, and that's been acknowledged, which I'm glad that that's been noticed. But all of the outside material storage has ceased. The semi-traffic to this location by Cleary semis has ceased a while ago, and I know that semi for overhead doors has been coming to the property as well, but that has also, I arranged an alternate to that last week, and this week the delivery didn't come to the property with that semi. All the Cleary employees have been instructed to enter our property from Catron Boulevard and not to travel down Wellington Drive. The conditions of the grounds have improved. The grass is mowed more frequently. I've personally trimmed the weeds in the ditch along Catron Boulevard and across the road at the intersection of Wellington Drive and Catron. I've sprayed for weeds on multiple occasions and will continue to do so. The tenant, Black Hills Garage Doors, who rents from us, has, under my instruction, removed most of his vehicles, trailers, and equipment from the property. And I'm not listing these changes to receive credit, but rather to prove that I'm willing to take action and improve the condition of our property. I've also been receptive to all input from the Planning Commission members I've been working with, and I hope I've made you guys' jobs easier by cooperating. I understand in the past some of the concerns of the neighborhood have seemingly fallen on deaf ears. I intend to change that. As I mentioned, I want to be a good neighbor to all of you. I'm accessible to all residents in this neighborhood, and I would encourage any of you to call me if you have any concerns. And Karen, Tim, if there's anything, I would rather have you come directly to me so I can take care of it right away, so you don't have to listen to noise for, multiple nights. I can take care of that right away on the spot, and we can find a solution that doesn't detract from your quality of life, because I know I don't cope well when my sleep gets interrupted. So I understand the focus today is on the negative impact of Cleary operating at this location, but I'd also like to point out that while Cleary does not actively serve the residential development, we still benefit the community. Over the years, I've witnessed our property serve the residents of this neighborhood in many ways. Our parking lot is frequently used as overflow parking. An example is the neighborhood garage sale on August 15th, where almost every parking space in our parking lot was occupied by vehicles belonging to the residents of the neighborhood in order to allow visitors to the neighborhood garage sale to park and browse. There are also many occasions where our parking lot is used as a turnaround and waiting point for parents who are dropping off or picking up their children at the bus stop in front of our driveway. Like you mentioned, that there is a school bus stop there, and that's used for a turnaround, which is fine. I don't have any problems with any of those things. At times, there are large RVs and cars and trucks parked in our lot when residents have visitors in from out of town. And oftentimes, they'll ask if they can park there, and I haven't had issues with that either. The grassy area next to our building is used on a daily basis for pet exercise. On occasion, this area is also used by parents and children to play sports such as baseball or soccer. Our parking lot is also used by children in the neighborhood to skateboard, rollerblade, or ride bicycles. At times, our dumpster is used for overflow of domestic waste. Other items such as tires, grills, patio furniture, and other household items have been left in our dumpster. Our heavy equipment, which is basically a skid steer, has been helped to remove snow from public roads and private driveways in emergency situations like the winter storm Atlas. All of these features of our property add something to the neighborhood, and many of the residents have enjoyed these benefits over the years. And so I just kind of want to look at both sides of the coin with all that. You know, I'm not trying to say that those are problems, but just rather look at both sides of the coin there. So thank you all for your time, and I appreciate your support in changing this usage back and giving me an opportunity to bring our property into compliance.
Steve?
And I guess one other thing, as far as the employees reporting the location in the morning, that should be, and going forward, can be as minimal as parking a car and leaving in another. That operating equipment in the early hours, that can be eliminated.
Steve, do you have a question?
Yeah, I don't have a question for Pat. Hours 8 to 5, I understand that, and every job I've ever had, I get there 6:30, 7 o'clock. That's me. So I don't think there should be a problem with employees getting there early. I do have an issue with the backing up equipment and stuff, and from my understanding, Vicki, that equipment is not to be stored. There's not an option. Under this, it's office. That equipment, none of that action should be occurring there, and that's what I want to make clear, because when I first heard Pat say we can reduce this or stop it, and from what we're saying here, there is no option. It goes away, or whereas this can't go forward. And that's what I just wanted to make clear, because Patrick had said, well, we might be able to reduce this. There is no reducing. It doesn't belong there. Is that correct?
You are correct.
All right, thank you.
Madam
Andy?
Chair?
Oh, yes.
Just in answering Galen's previous question, if you look at the operational plan for overhead doors, they indicate that they do have semi-deliveries. They just come, to their credit, they were very honest about how their site operates and how they need it to operate. And looking at how it's operated in the past in their written statement, if there's no equipment that's allowed on the property or no construction material, in order to get this back to a professional office use, it just doesn't work for them. So our recommendation is that they cease, and the attorney's office has said that they would have 30 days to do so, and then they would take legal action. In this case, if the stipulations as approved today go forward, then Cleary would also have to remove all trailers, forklifts, etc. from the property, so there would be no issue of if they show up, are they doing anything besides getting coffee and getting their work instructions for the day. There would be nothing there else on the site that would be there for them to operate or to move around.
Thank you, Vicki. Andy?
One of the pictures I think I saw a for sale sign. Is the property currently for sale?
Yes, it is. It's been for sale for some time.
Okay.
Galen? Oh, Andy?
It is a very, I guess I look at it a few different ways. One, Cleary's been there for at least 10 years. And it's also a pretty challenging environment for a construction office, because I know a little bit about construction, and it's usually it's not an 8 to 5. It's a 5 to 10 p.m. People coming and going and doing various things, and the duties of the job and what it takes. So it is a pretty challenging location for that. It would seem that, for it to function appropriately, it would really call for a rezone. However, I think that, Cleary has taken some action to try to be a better neighbor, be the best neighbor that they can be. And maybe there is some options to look long-term to buy them some time to maybe find a more appropriate location. Maybe there are some things that can be done with some additional screening, et cetera, some agreements in terms of delivery and manpower and people. But ultimately, it's probably not the right location to support its current use, unless it truly is just an office building. But I find that difficult to see how it can operate as such in the nature of the business for which they perform. So maybe there's some options to buy some time to help them find a better location as we move forward with whatever our discussions are here today, and maybe we can consider that.
And if I may speak to that, you're absolutely correct. As you mentioned, our property is for sale. It's been for sale for some time, and it's kind of been something that's hanging out there that we're going to sell the property and move to a new location. However, at this time, with the situation we're in, we're there, and we need to operate there and continue to do business until we can sell the property and move to another location. So my major intent with this change is to get us into compliance and also to reduce the impact on the neighborhood until we can make a more permanent change.
Vicki?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if they were to bring the site into compliance with what was originally approved, it would just be an office building. That's all it's ever been approved for. So I think what Patrick's really asking you today is whether or not he can use this as an office building for Cleary and as a site that they would have some construction equipment and construction material inside the building with stricter hours of operation. Is that what you're actually asking, Patrick?
That's correct.
Yeah, so if he's trying to just bring it into compliance, then it would just be offices. That's all it's ever been approved for.
Thank you. Galen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I just have maybe a question or concern about, there's a sentence that says, the part about no office use shall be allowed that results in construction vehicles being parked on the property. Well, what are construction vehicles defined? So have we established that trailers are not allowed? And then the second part of that is, are they allowed to be parked inside the garages? So if they keep all of their construction equipment inside the garage until 8 a.m., then would that be an allowable use under the way it's written here?
Vicki?
So, in other words, if you have your standard residential vehicle, a pickup and a car, those kinds of things would be allowed on the site. The same thing that you would drive into any other professional office to get out of your vehicle to go into the building and conduct work. That would be all that would currently be allowed. The way it's written, that's as restrictive as it is. If you, the Planning Commission, want to open that up, you'll have to revise that stipulation that would allow for construction material and construction equipment to be on site, and then identify how you want that to be operated, only inside the building, etc. So, again, good conversation, but the stipulation as it's written would not allow it.
Eric?
Question for you, Patrick. My perspective, there's probably a way to mitigate the issues to the neighborhood of early morning or later evening work if it's just people we're talking about and cars, but the equipment and trailers, all of a sudden, the minute you start loading a trailer or loading equipment or loading parts or, pieces and parts onto a trailer, that goes, that you're out of the realm. Do you see any potential for operating this without the equipment and trailers that you have on site?
Yes, I do. And like I said, this has been a learning process for me, so I'm just kind of dealing with things as they arise. Originally, the issue was the outside storage and outside parking of equipment. And that's why I've cleaned up the exterior of the building, moved everything inside. What I plan to do now, all of the work, all of the construction work is carried out on site. There's no construction work done on the property. It's essentially a meeting point. What we have been doing is bringing the equipment back to the property and then leaving with it in the morning. So we park it there at night, take it out in the morning. Instead of doing that, we're going to transfer that equipment directly from site to site and not bring it back to the property. So the only thing coming back to the property would be the employees and the truck that they ride in, which is a Ford F-350.
Yes, Eric.
Do you have I don't know how to put it, a backup plan if there's not a place to put the backhoe, you know, a next site to go to and it has to leave one site? Or, I mean, in that case, or...
The backup plan, I guess, is my house. So yes, so I do.
Don't tell code enforcement where you live.
It's not in the city.
Thank you.
Amanda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I ask a question of Vicki, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. And just, Patrick, so you know, I'm the council liaison, so I have no vote on this committee today. But I'm just trying to get some more clarity for this issue. Vicki, from my memory, it seems to me that when we've considered some issues like this in the past, if the Planning Commission itself wants to change the stipulations to allow Patrick some workability within the neighborhood and being able to work with the neighbors, there's a time limit or a sunset or a review period that a time can be set so that it would come back before the Planning Commission for a review. Is that a possibility for a stipulation as well?
We can. Certainly, we've done that on a group home along Fifth Street, and we can do that here, where if you approve it with the stipulations as identified today, and again, Patrick, I think you've done a great job trying to understand the concerns that Karen and Tim have brought to the table and conceding to the fact that you just can't have that equipment and the material on site. We could come back in 6 months and look at it again so that the neighbors know that they have a voice still, that this isn't something they have to go to code enforcement and it has to go through that longer process. That's not a bad idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted the planning commissioners to know that while they're discussing this, what I've heard Vicki say is that the member or the panel up here today can alter the stipulations to the best scenario, since Cleary has been there for such a long time and trying to and is making an effort to get along with the neighbors to see if he can find some compromise. Since it is the intention to actually sell this building, the question is just when. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Andy?
You know, I think the overlying issue really resides in the fact that this is currently zoned low-density residential, and previously there had been agreement into the use of the property zone low density to the best of my knowledge, to a use that doesn't necessarily comply with low-density residential. I could be wrong on that. So then you kind of look beyond that a little bit, and the low-density residential item was what I feel is making it might be more difficult to figure out how to best, find a solution here. But if we fast forward in time, whether if this building was to not be there any longer, the reality is that this parcel of land would probably never be low-density residential. It's not in a favorable location with high traffic count at this period of time, with apartments being built across the street to which somebody would want to put their private residence there. And so that would lead me to believe that the most appropriate action would be to find a way to rezone the property to even what we're suggesting today, to really as an office commercial use or to a general commercial use.
Vicki?
Okay, so in order
I'm
to
not
get...
done yet.
Okay.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Because underneath that office commercial utilization, you still couldn't do what Cleary's asking or wanting to do, even in what they're trying to do to be most favorable. Now, in a general commercial situation, you could be allowed to receive deliveries such as you would if you were a Safeway or an Albertsons or a Walmart or anything else with appropriate screening. So I mean, maybe that's where the conversation needs to go. Otherwise, you're just kind of saying, this is low-density residential, they'll probably never be redeveloped. That's my opinion.
Vicki?
Thank you. Andy, that's certainly things that we have talked about and looked at for several years, too. Our future land use plan shows this property as low-density neighborhood. We do see this in the future, this use going away. The building will probably go away, too. The townhomes that are bordering it will probably be expanded into this area. Similar to what you see along Dan Christie Lane, just down the street from this, there will be homes where the backside of those homes border Catron Boulevard. And we do see this as a viable extension of the existing residential neighborhood. In order for this use to function as it currently is today, this site would have to be zoned light industrial. Even in general commercial, you couldn't have the equipment and the truck traffic with the storage of materials that truly allows them to function in the manner that brings them the most flexibility in operating their business successfully. And that's something that staff has visited with Patrick and previous managers with, and they have concurred that best case scenario, they could find a site that was light industrial that allowed them the freedom that other construction companies have. You know, we certainly don't like having them feel like they're being watched by everyone, but in reality, this is zoned low-density residential. It is in a planned unit development. By ordinance, 20% of the property within a planned unit development can be commercial, but it should serve the residential development in which it is located. You usually see a little strip mall, maybe a convenience store. And at no time can it be industrial. So even through what you take action today, you can't add stipulations that would take it outside of what the ordinance says that commercial activity needs to be. I think that Patrick's done a great job today realizing that in order to fit in the existing zoning and knowing that the future land use plan would not support a rezone, it may be something that they can continue functioning and operating from with those restrictions, and hopefully down the road they do get relocated. I know the owner of the property certainly has it up for sale, would certainly like to see someone come in and develop it where he then is located in an industrial area and all of these complaints about the business can cease.
Steve?
I've got a couple questions, if that's okay. The first one is for Vicki. The way it sits right now, we're getting ready to vote on, basically states that they can't have anything stored there. Is that correct, if we go forward with this? So basically, it's just office. And Andy had talked about maybe trying to see if there's a way that we can work something out. Now, what I heard you say a minute ago was that we can't make that change so they can have something stored there. Is that correct?
Again, through the planned unit development with the underlying zoning being low-density residential, the only commercial use that's there has to serve the residential development in which it's located and must be commercial in nature. What they're proposing to do is industrial, and the planned unit development doesn't allow for industrial uses.
I'm just simple questions, Vicki, just yes or no. So in other words, we cannot say you can go ahead and store something there, basically what I'm hearing from you, correct? Okay, that's what you need to know. And I understood Andy was saying too, because my crews get to my office usually around 7 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, and I'm directly across from a trailer park. And I had a gentleman come over and visit because my guys get out of their vehicles and they talk loud, they drink their coffee, and so he came over, he's very nice, and so I told my crew, you park your car, you bring your butt inside the building. It's that simple. And I told the guy, thank you for coming over. And I hadn't really thought about it. I'd see them out there joking around early in the morning and didn't think it's 6:30 in the morning. So it was brought to my attention, I handled it. They come inside the office, they want to joke and talk, they can do it inside my office. I do appreciate Patrick coming here and visiting with us. But from what I'm hearing you say, there's really nothing we can do as far as that except to go ahead and vote for what's been brought before us and allow them to use it as basically an office, correct? Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any more speaker request forms.
I'd move to approve with stipulations by staff.
Steve has made the motion to approve. Is there a second? With the stipulations by staff.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Okay. Are there any other discussion items?
None from staff, just the election of officers for Planning Commission.
We are now open to nominations for chairman.
Madam Chair?
I'll second it.
I make a motion that we nominate Eric.
Okay.
I'll remove mine.
Officers automatically become officers of the zoning board of adjustment.
Yes.
Sure he does.
All those in favor of Eric being chairman of the plan?
Aye.
Motion, opposed? Motion passed. Eric's chairman. Vice chairman.
Second.
Any other? Motion's been made that Karen be vice chairman. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Karen's the vice chairman. I'm just writing notes. Secretary.
I make a motion that we nominate Steve.
Karen made the motion, and it's been seconded by Andy. For Steve to be secretary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Steve's secretary. Are there any other agenda items?
Madam Chair,
Karen?
I would just like to say thank you for you chairing this and being the leader of our Planning Commission for several years, and thank you for your job that you've done for the community.
It's been a pleasure. I learned a lot.
Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
You did a good job.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Jan made the motion, Karen second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Meeting adjourned.